Crystal Police Lieutenant Derek Hacker, in his role as the prosecution's use of force expert, gave his opinion on Mohamed Noor's shot that killed Justine Ruszczyk-Damond. The use of force and use of deadly force was excessive, objectively unreasonable, and violated police policies and training, Hacker testified. Prosecutor Patrick Lofton went through each element that led to the shooting, asking questions the jury might be wondering. Did Justine Ruszczyk do anything wrong? No, Hacker said. Police are approached daily. The public approaches officers in their squad cars routinely. Is it important whether she slapped the car? No, it really is irrelevant, Hacker said. The fact remains she approached the car and was shot. Hacker testified that officers are spooked daily, and being spooked or startled does not mean that death or great bodily harm is apparent, the factors needed to justify the use of deadly force. Hacker testified that officers should have used verbal commands for Ruszczyk to stop or let me see your hands so they could evaluate whether there was a threat. In cross-examination, defense attorney Peter Wold showed the jury that Hacker based his opinion on facts that are in dispute, such as whether the officers drove through the alley with their guns in their lap and whether they should have connected the call to an earlier call from a woman in need of help. And testimony ended today with the national use of force expert still on the stand. He'll need to be cross-examined tomorrow starting at 11 a.m. And what they left the jury with as the prosecution ended up, Prosecutor Amy Sweezy asked him how much force should have been used. And he said, for walking up to the squad car, nothing. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Lou. And you can get the latest court updates on air and on our KARE 11 social media pages.
A man reported